get you some. Oh, yeah. Mate, it's lucky she can cook. Wow!
G'day lovelies, and welcome to part 2, stocking the pantry. So back when COVID first hit, I turned my hallway cupboard into a pantry. So there are 2 key things to remember when stocking your pantry on a budget. The first one is quality over quantity. So we can't afford to go out and buy 100 cans of something that we may never use, even though they don't go out of date. What we want to concentrate on is buying the things that we use all the time first. Once we've got all that together, then you can go out and buy extras. So for me, my pantry is a cooking pantry. Almost everything I've got in here is for cooking. Most things I've only got one of, and then things I use all the time I've got multiples of. The good thing with doing this is that when you use something out of the pantry, you put it on your list and you buy it next week or next fortnight. This way, your pantry stock is always getting rotated and nothing ever goes out of date. The second thing to remember is to keep your pantry organised. It is so much cheaper if you've got your pantry organised. There's nothing worse than going to make something and you can't find what you need. You go down and buy it, and then you find it on a different shelf in a couple of weeks. So organisation is the key to keeping your pantry stocked well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go from the top to the bottom of the pantry. So the tools of the trade. So for cooking, we need plenty of paper towel. I like to buy the big 50-metre roll of baking paper. It lasts a long time and they're $12 at Coles. If you bake a lot, it is absolutely worth getting it in that size. Alfoil, I've got the 60-metre rolls for now. But once I've got everything I need and I come back around to start buying extra stuff, I will definitely be going to Aldi's and buying the big ass boxes of Glad Wrap and Alfoil. The last time I bought one of them, you would remember because it was on my bench for years, they literally last years. The tools for preserving food. Ziploc bags are an absolute must. I like to get them in the sandwich size and the snack size. They are great for storing food. Glad Wrap is a must, and like I said, when you can, go to Aldi. I think they were like $16 for a massive roll. Now I absolutely love these cellophane bags with ties. They're Anko brand. You get them at Kmart for $1 a pack, and there's 25 to the pack. They're fantastic for food gifts, and they're the absolute perfect size for toffee apples and caramel apples, which I want to do down the track. And they're a must-have in your kitchen arsenal. And last but not least, the reusable bag clips. I honestly don't know how I've lived all this time without them. They're fantastic for things like your frozen veggie bags, your cereal bags, your chip bags, all your different dried fruits and nut bags. They're just fantastic. I bought this pack of 20 from Coles for $4, and they come in 2 sizes. They've got large and medium in there. You can also buy them at Kmart for $1.75, and I think they've got 3 different sizes in them. An absolute must-have. Now for cereal, I only ever buy Rice Bubbles, Corn Flakes and rolled oats. All 3 of these I use for slices and biscuits. I like to buy them in the bulk packs because now I've got those bag clips, they always stay fresh. I threw in a pancake mix just to remind you that with those pancake mixes, the only thing you need is water. So they're a fantastic thing to have. And when I come back around, I'll probably buy a few more. Now for the next shelf, the can shelf. From left to right. Veggies, soups, tomato based, fish and ham, milk, fruit. So when it comes to the veggies, I just get one of each. The peas, the beans, the peas, corn and carrots, and the baby carrots. When it comes to the cream corn, I always have 2 cans because I love using them for my tuna mornays. I love the corn kernels for things like your corn fritters. Baby corn is fantastic for stir fries. Bean sprouts for when we want to do our pantry fried rice. Always good to have a can of mushrooms if you can't get fresh ones. I love using them in spaghettis and lasagnas and pretty much everything. The whole baby potatoes are beautiful for a warm salad, but they're just great to have as a backup. I always have a can of the water chestnuts because I like to use them in a lot of different spring rolls. A little can of diced capsicum is an excellent backup if you can't go and get fresh. I've always got a jar of asparagus, great for anything, but I absolutely love them for quiches. And canned beetroot is a must-have in any Aussie pantry because you can't beat a root. So I like to buy a large one for if you're having a barbies and you want it cold to have with all your different salads. And then I'll buy a small one for if I'm doing hamburgers with a lot. And I've always thrown a can of chickpeas in there because you never know. Soups. I always buy one of each of the condensed soups because I like to use them for potato bakes, lots of different cooking. And I love the condensed tomato soup for my old school mac and cheese. You'll never use them all in one fortnight, so you don't need to buy a boatload of them. And if the shops do close down, there's 6 meals you can make right there. So for the tomato paste, I always have 2 or 3 cans of the crushed tomatoes because I do use them quite often. I've always got a couple of jars of dolmio because I use them for spaghettis, lasagnas, and I also love them on pizza. I bought one of these new little Lego ones just to try out on pizzas. And I love having a can of tomato paste because if I run out of my jar tomato paste in the fridge and I've run out of my little sachets, it's a fantastic backup, and tomato paste is one thing I do use a lot of. Now for the fish and ham, I've always got 2 large cans of tuna because I love my tuna mornay, and I've also got tuna patties on the show and you only need 1 can for them. So if you don't eat tuna mornay but you eat your patties, there's a couple of meals right there. I've always got a can of salmon because I love my salmon patties. I've got a couple of cans of crab and a couple of cans of prawn. And down the track there's a couple of recipes I want to make using stuffed crab. Now the prawns, I love having them because if we make up our cupboard fried rice, I use the little prawns for them. And it reminds me of back when I was a kid and we used to get the takeaway fried rice and they'd have the little prawns in it and you'd pick through and you'd try and find them all. I love sardines, but I only love them in tomato sauce and they're only $1 a can, so I've always got a couple of them in the cupboard. For the leg ham, I've always got 1 can in there. It's a ridiculous $12. But if you wait for it to go on special, you can get them for around $7. I love having one of them in there because if I do a cupboard fried rice or pretty much anything else, it's fantastic to have. And when you do a cupboard fried rice, you've pretty much got everything because you've got your bacon in the freezer, and if you can't get fresh onion, you've got a frozen onion as well. So you can pretty much do a full-on fried rice. The only thing you won't have is egg. Now for the milk section, I've always got cans of sweetened condensed milk because I make a lot of different slices with them. Now to start stocking, 2 or 3 cans is fine. But when I go back around, I'll probably add a few more later. Coconut milk and coconut cream, I've always got in the cupboard because I use them for a lot of different sorts of sautés and things like that. Top and fill caramel, never hurts to have a can of that in there. And the full cream evaporative milk, always got a can of that in there. You use it for different sort of chowder soups, lots of different things, a great thing to have. Now to the fruit section. I have always got an apricot nectar for my apricot chicken. Always got an apple sauce because I love my pork and apple sauce. Yes, you can make your own, but it never hurts to have a jar as a backup. And with Christmas coming up, one of the first things to sell out is applesauce, so go grab that now. I've always got the 3 different tins of pineapple, crushed slices and pieces. I use them in a lot of baking and even in savoury dishes. Now I've always got the smaller cans in things like these because these are great for tarts, pies, strudels and cheesecakes. The little cans of passion fruit pulp are a must-have, especially around Christmas time, but I use them for a lot of different slices as well. But they are fantastic to have in the cupboard. If the prices soar or the shop's closed down, you've still got everything you need to make your beautiful tarts, etc. Then I always buy peaches, apricots, fruit salad and pears in the big large cans. Peaches I absolutely love on cornflakes. Apricots I love with custard. Fruit salad, Dad used to give it to us all the times as kids. He'd put it in the fridge and get it nice and cold, and we'd have fruit salad and ice cream for dessert, and we used to love it. And pears are just beautiful on their own, and they're also amazing wrapped in pastry. Alright, you'll have to excuse Ned snoring in the background. So for the next 2 shelves, on the left we've got savoury and the right we've got sweet. So I've got a large packet of Deb instant mashed potato. You only need boiling water and butter. Now the first reason I've always got that in the pantry is for nostalgia. And the second reason, it is a great backup and it's also used in a lot of different recipes, which I have not done yet, but will be doing down the track. Now when it comes to stock, I used to have a lot of stock, but they would always go out of date before I used them all. So now I only have 2 because it's summer. In winter, I would probably have 3 or 4. If I happen to run out of stock and I can't go and get any, I've always got a packet of stock cubes. That's what we used to use in the good old days, and they are fantastic if you don't have any stock. Jars of chopped garlic. I would die without my chopped garlic. I have always got one in the fridge and I have always got one in the pantry. Breadcrumbs are an absolute must. I've always got them in the pantry, and everything that I've got open, I've got all glass jars and I use them, and this in the cupboard is all the stock. So when I run out of something in the jar, I get it out of the cupboard and then I replenish it. Now the Maggi Rich Gravy Mix, I absolutely love it. It is so Moorish. I've always got them in the big containers. Now with this one, it was the only one thing I could get in a fortnight because it was $40. But it is absolutely worth getting because in the long run, it is so much cheaper than buying them singularly. As long as you put the lid on properly every time, it will last you forever. Corn flour is an absolute must-have. I've always got one in the kitchen cupboard and I've always got my backup in the pantry. Now the bigger cheddar cheese blocks are the shelf life blocks. They were always Kraft, or I can't remember what the other one was called, but they were blue. Now they come in the green Bega ones. It is an absolute must-have in every pantry. I love using it for cheese sauces, and it's a fantastic backup, and they've got like at least a year on them. French onion soup mixes. Always got 2 of them in the pantry. I use them for apricot chickens, but I also use them for a lot of other different things. Now when it comes to herbs and spices, I have got them all on my kitchen cupboard, and we will be doing them in part 3. But what I do is when they get down to about halfway, I will put them on the list, I will buy them, and then I will stock them in the pantry. I found these dehydrated peas online at Coles, and I've never actually seen them before. And I thought if I run out of frozen or can, these would be fantastic to have in the cupboard, and being dehydrated, they will never go out of date. I've always got backups of salt and pepper in the pantry. Always the normal salt. I absolutely love the Murray River salt. And the sea salt flakes I use for a lot of different desserts. And I like to have one box of the tomato paste sachets. They're a great backup if I run out of my jar tomato paste. I've always got a packet of corn chips if I want to make nachos, and a mild tomato salsa. Always got one of them in the cupboard for things like nachos. It never hurts to have a couple of packets of El Pasos in there. I always try and keep a packet of the mini papadums in my cupboard because I absolutely love them when I make my buttered chicken. So when it comes to the ready-to-eat cans, I've got one of each of the things I love. Any Aussie Pantry has to have a braised steak and onions. The Campbell's spaghetti sauce with beef is a nostalgic thing for me. It's full of mince, and all you need is a packet of pasta and you've got your spaghetti bog. It is a fantastic backup and something everybody should have in their cupboards. Spaghetti and baked beans. So for the little cans of tuna, the Coles ones are only $1.10 a can. And I love buying these sweet corn and mayonnaise ones. See, I used to buy those little packets where you get the can of sweet corn and mayonnaise and you get the crackers with it with the little spoon. But now I get these. They're only $1.10 a can. And then I get the packets of Ritz biscuits, original. And the box comes with 3 packets in them. And one packet you will use with one can. When they go on special, $1.75 a box. So it works out really, really cheap this way. If you haven't been able to eat Jatz biscuits for a while because your teeth are bad, these Ritz biscuits are brilliant. They're crunchy but soft. And last but not least, I've always got a can of the steak and kidney pie. 1, nostalgia. 2, they're absolutely Moorish. Now they're pretty expensive at $10.20, but when they go on special for around $7.50, and that is one thing I will definitely double or triple up on down the track. Now onto the sweet side. So every time any of these go on special, I like to grab a box because they are great little backups. So the self-sauce puddings were on special for $1.17 a pack, so I couldn't help myself. I got all 4. I grabbed a vanilla mud cake because it was on special, and they're great little backups. Chocolate brownies are a great little backup. Now when it comes to chocolate mousse, I always had the white wings ones, and I always had a couple of them in the cupboard, but I can no longer get them. So I've just got one of the greens ones for now because I haven't actually tried them yet. But when I do try it, if it is good, I will definitely double or triple up on them. Because if you can't get to the shops or they're shut down, you can use your cold UHT milk and you can whip up a beautiful dessert. Raspberry jam is a must-have. I use that for a lot of different desserts and slices. Pavlova Magic. Jelly. I've got lots of different boxes of jelly. I just grab one every time I go shopping. When they're on special, they're like $1.25. They're fantastic because all you need is boiling water. And you can make fruit jellies using the canned fruit. You just make sure you drain your fruit properly first. And the only fruit that you can't really use in jelly is pineapple. It won't let the jelly set. So they're an absolute fantastic thing to have in the cupboard. Custard powder, absolute must-have. I've always got one in the pantry and one in the kitchen cupboard. Instant puddings, I've always got a couple of them. It's another thing you can always use with your cold UHT milk. Now I've always got a packet of Marie, a packet of butternut and a packet of chopped ripple. I use all 3 of these in slices and cheesecakes, and they're a must-have in any cook's pantry. So the essentials for baking. I love the egg replacer. No, you can't mix it up and fry it up and you've got eggs. That's not what it's for. But when you want to bake a cake and you don't have any eggs, it's perfect. Baking powder, absolute must-have. I've always got one in the pantry and one in the kitchen cupboard. Arrowroot is used for a few recipes, but not a lot. So that one usually lasts me a couple of years. Cream of tartar, I've always got one in the pantry and one in the cupboard. Cocoa powder, absolute must. I absolutely love the Black and Gold brand. I have used it forever and it's better than any other cocoa powder you can get. I've always got one in the pantry and one in the kitchen cupboard. Bicarb soda, I always buy in big boxes because I use it for everything. Whether it's baking, cleaning, healing, I just use it for everything. Coconut, very important when you're baking sweets. I've always got one shredded coconut and one desiccated coconut in the pantry, and then I've got the open ones in jars. I like to keep a yeast in the fridge and another dried yeast in the pantry. Gelatin powder is another thing I'll keep in the pantry and one in the kitchen cupboard. Golden syrup and treacle, absolute must have. I've always got them in the kitchen cupboard and the extras in the pantry. And finally for this lot, your cooking chocolates. I love to have one of every cooking chocolate in the cupboard. Now when I come back around, it's probably one thing I will double up on. Now last time we were in lockdown, it was my granddaughter's birthday, but lucky for me, I've always got this sort of stuff in stock, including birthday candles. So your food colourings, your icings, even though you can make your own, I found these new ones, and on the back they've got all the different piping tips. So I can't wait to try them out and see how they go. So when it comes to all the sugars, I've got them all in jars, and these are all my backups in the pantry. But when I come back around, I'll probably get a couple more caster sugar because I use a lot of that, and perhaps even another brown sugar. So I've always got caster sugar. I've always got plenty of icing sugar because you do use a lot of it when you use it. Raw sugar, always good to have as a backup. Brown sugar, incredibly important in cooking. And white sugar. Now for the last two shelves. We've got all our different flour. We've got all our different pasta. Then we've got all our rice, which we went through last week. And then we've got all our different oils and sauce refills. So when it comes to flour, the self-raising flour and the plain flour, I always get them in the 2 kilo bags, and I've always got 2 of each in the pantry and 1 of each in the kitchen cupboard. Couscous, I only buy a little box and I've always got that on hand. I don't use it very often, but it's great to have there for when I need it. Same with the rice flour. I don't use it very often, but it's always great to have a little box there for when you need it. I've always got 1 bag of cornstarch in the cupboard because I absolutely love using that for my honey chicken. So when it comes to the bread flour, I love this Wallabies one, and I use that in my bread maker. 1 bag does 2 loaves, and at the moment I've got 3 bags in the cupboard, which is 6 loaves, which is really actually perfect. So whenever I pull one out, I'll replace it. Now when it comes to your pasta, I've always got 2 packs of spirals because I love using them for my pasta salads. And sometimes I might make up 2 different salads. So that's why I've got the 2 packs. The penny I always use for spaghetti box. The cannoli, I haven't done it yet on the show, but there is plenty of different things you can make with them. So having a box of them is fantastic. For the long spaghetti, I love the flat long spaghetti, and I use that for heaps of different things, including marinaras. Now when it comes to the macaroni, I love the elbow macaroni for my old school mac and cheese, and I love the little macaroni for my other mac and cheese, and I also like using them in soups. So when I come back around, I'll probably grab a couple of extra packets of the macaronis. Now the egg noodle pasta, or tangeli or whatever you call them, I love using them with a cheese sauce with ham, corn and spring onion. Oh, fantastic. So I've always got one of them in the cupboard. I've always got 1 vermicelli because I love using that in my spring rolls and other things. And the lasagna sheets. I've always got 1 box in the cupboard and it does 1 large lasagna. But when I come back around, I will probably buy an extra one of that as well. Now for the ready-made pastas, I like to get 1 of each of the San Remo, They're a great backup to have in the cupboard, and you can use your UHT milk for them if you can't get to the shops. Now for me, the 2-minute noodles, I found these new honey and soy chicken ones. Now when it comes to the chicken and the beef noodles, I've already done the 2 recipes for the loaded noodles. But now these new honey soy chicken ones have come out. I'm going to do a loaded honey soy chicken one soon. So I'll have to get another packet of them down the track as well. But they're also a fantastic thing to have in the cupboard. All you need is boiling water. And I love my wok ready thin egg noodles. There's 2 packets in each packet, and I've always got a couple of packets of them in the pantry. They are fantastic for any of your stir fries. Now for the oil. When I deep fry, I love using canola oil. I pretty much use that for everything. So I always buy it in the 4-litre containers. When it gets about halfway down, I will go out and buy another one. So these ones I get from Coles when they're on special for $15. But IGA does have their own brand, and they're usually around $12 all the time. Now I use olive oil for everything. I've always got one on the kitchen bench, and I've always got one back up in the pantry. Same with the olive oil sprays. They're fantastic for baking and barbecues, etc. So I've usually got one of them in the kitchen cupboard, and I've got one in the pantry. Now for the sauce refills. They're $6 all the time, and when they're on special, they go for about $4.50. They're 2-litre bottles, and they're absolutely worth it. And it was so much cheaper in the long run to have the refills. So they're a must-have in any pantry, especially at the beginning of summer. Well, there you have it, lovelies. That is the pantry done and dusted. If you stock it with a lot of these ingredients, you will literally be able to make 95% of the recipes on my show. Now part 3 will be stocking the kitchen cupboards, which will be all our herbs and spices, all our different sauces, all the different spreads for cooking and baking, our dried nuts and fruit, and all the other little things that I have in the kitchen cupboards. Now I'm still stocking them, and it's going to take me at least a couple more weeks. So part 3 won't be up for at least a couple of weeks. But in the meantime, I will still be back on Monday nights. So thank you all so very much for watching. I really hope this is food for thought. Take care of yourselves. Have a lovely week. And I'll see you all next Monday. Toodles.